So, welcome to us today, and we are going to discuss a few things today pertaining to food and beverage service. So, maybe before I start, let me just capture the detail of those who have attended our class today. You can see Dennis Kithi, Christine Wambui, Rose Chitui, Caroline Ireiri, Soro, and Giki. So I've already captured your data and confirmed your attendance today. So today we'll be looking at a very important aspect of food and beverage service called food and beverage service styles. Yes, so that is what we are going to discuss in our class today. And maybe before I start, is there anyone with an idea what is food and beverage service styles? Maybe you know anything about the same. You can lay the foundation for us even as we start off. Anyone from the class? Yes, yes, Carol.
I think these are techniques or methods used when serving.
Yes, these are methods used when serving. So definitely, or we can say these are just methods that are employed during food and beverage service. That is for both the beverages and the food. So our objective for the day are going to be number one objective, we'll be able to define terms associated with food and beverage service styles. And then we'll also state the food and beverage service styles that are available in our hospitality industry. We are also going to look at identification of the ideal place to use each and every food and beverage style that we would have looked at. Yes. So that is going to guide our discussion throughout our lesson. So first task is our first task is to look at the some of the terms that are used when we are looking or we are talking about food and beverage service styles. So, number one term is what your friend Carol has just defined, the definition of food and beverage service styles. So from what she told us, it is methods used. And maybe what I can just add on that is that this is a service style that in which the service staff presents food and beverage to the guest. These are ways or methods used by the service staff to present food and the beverage to guests using different techniques. So that is number one term. Our next term to define here is the menu. So menu. Who can tell us what is a menu? Anyone who can tell us what is a menu? Yes, Ross.
Okay, a trial teacher.
Yes.
I can say a menu is a list of food and beverage items which are offered to a guest in a restaurant or a food establishment.
Yes, this is a list of food and beverage items offered, food and beverage items that are sold or given to hospitality in a hospitality outlets. Just as you say, these are offered to guests in a hotel establishment. So thank you. That is it. So when we're looking at this, remember our objective number three, which is to look at where to use these styles of service. So before we get to that, I just want us to look at some of the uh, consideration that you need to put in place before you employ each and every food and beverage service style. So there are factors that you need to consider before choosing a food and beverage service style in a particular establishment. So I'll just highlight a few of them here. They are not maybe limited to this, but these just some of the examples of factors that you need to look at as a food and beverage personnel before you employ any style in your establishment. So, number one is the type of establishment. By type of establishment, we mean that you need to look at, are you maybe a hotel based in a business or a busy area? Are you a resort? Are you a motel? So that one will be a guiding tool for you to understand what you ought to employ or which style are you going to use. So, for example, in a motel, you may not be, uh, you may not use a very defined or a very distinct style of service, because remember, these are people who are having very less time to eat. Some of them, they are not only given time to pick food, so you need to employ the right style to those kind of people. And then number two consideration is for you to look at time available for the meal. How long does your meal take? If it's your lunch, how much time have you allocated for that lunch? So that one will also be guiding you, because different styles of service, they have, or they need different times or different period of time. So before you choose any style of service, you need to look at how long do you have to do that particular exercise. And then the turnover of customers expected. Turnover is whereby we are looking at the coming in and going out of customers in a given particular or in a given period. For example, uh, the establishment whereby they have a high turnover, maybe during lunchtime, and maybe other times they may not have high numbers of customers flocking into their restaurant and going out. So you need to look at those aspects. And then we also need to look at cost of meals served. How much are you selling each item in your restaurant? So this one also guide you, because remember, different styles will require different personnel, will also require different equipment. So and that point, at that point, they the cost effect will change from one style to another. So you need to look at, how much am I charging for my meal? So which style can I employ so that I don't run into loss? And then also, finally, on our consideration, you look at the site of establishment. Where are you located? And because where you are located will also dictate the customers that will flock or will be coming in your restaurant. So the place you are located dictates the kind of customer coming there. So for example, you are located in a very busy or in a business center. Remember that maybe most probably you'll be serving people who are attending to business and other daily activities. So you need to look at a very good style that will be able to attend to the needs of this kind of customers. And so at that particular time, now I want us to look at some of the examples of food and beverage service styles available. Yes, can I get somebody to read for us what is just projected on our screens?
We will discuss the following
Yes.
service styles:
The styles that are available. These are categories of styles. So read, please. Number one,
table service, assisted service, self-service, single point service, and specialized service or in situ service.
okay, I think Rose has a problem with her network. Who can read us? Dennis, are you in a position to read? Yes.
Yes,
Number one is
table service,
table service, assisted
assisted
service.
service, self-service, single point service, and
Yes, thank you.
specialized service or in situ service.
Table service, assisted service, self-service, single point service, and specialized service, also known as NC2. So we are going to look at each one of them one by one so that we are able to understand how and where we can employ the same. Because remember, our objective number one was to see, to identify the style of service, and also to look at where we can employ that kind of style or style of service. So number one, we've looked at table service. By this, we mean that this is whereby the guest enters in the restaurant area and is seated by you, the waiter or the service personnel, and then you present your menu. Yeah, of course, I believe you understand what is a menu as defined to us by our your colleague uh, Ross. So you present the menu to the guests, and then you take their orders as a service person. And then after that, you use a laid cover that is on the table. So we know what is a laid cover, whereby you prepared all the items ready for service. And so in this case, you do much of the work. That is the essence of table service. The guest only presents themselves, but all the items will be served when the guest is seated. So we have number of them, some of the examples of table service. Number one, we have English service. Then number two, we have French service. Number three, Russian service, silver service, and American service. So when you look at this, we can see that they have as annotation of the area of where they were originally started. So, for example, English originates from the England, the land of England. And then we have French that was brought up, especially it started in the palace of the king, the French Empire. So that is where it all started. There are few differences, but all of them they just agree with what we have discussed here or what we have defined here. That the guest sits and all items are served to them while seated. So we'll be looking in our next class the distinct maybe differences that appear in some of these items. So maybe just to ask a question, who can tell us where some of these items are served or the location of where table service will be ideal for your restaurant? Okay, maybe to help you, this style of service is mostly ideal in fine dining, places whereby we work on fine dining. Fine dining, I mean that you want to explore or to display all your skills to the guests as a service personnel. Then next we look at assisted service. In this style, the style in this style of service, the guest enters the dining area and helps themselves to the food either from the buffet or the counter. So assisted in the sense that one may be served partly or at the table by the waiter and collect the extras from the counter. Assisted in the way that you serve the guest some of the items or they serve themselves and then you attend to them in other some or extra meals or extra items. So for example, a good example is buffet. So at this point, the guest serves themselves, they can take their main meal, but you'll serve them other items. For example, you can serve them the the drinks and any other extra items while they are seated. So it is a combination of the guests serving themselves and you also as a service person to you attend to them in where maybe they have not been served, they have not served themselves. So a good example is buffet. This item or this style of service is ideal when you have a large number of people and maybe you have a limited service personnel. For example, in during ceremonies like weddings and others, whereby you have so many people coming at the same time. So you need to employ an efficient style that will be able to attend to the needs of all the items, of all the guests. So that is it. And then we move to the next one, which is called self service. Self service, as the word maybe puts it out, is whereby the guest helps themselves. How do the guest help themselves? Here, the guest enters the service area, they select their own tray or from their own tray or the food, their own food counter. So they carry the food by themselves and then they go to sit. Just as maybe illustrated there in that photo below there, you can see there is one person attending to them and that their guest behind or on the counter. So as they stand there, they are able to be served by the person who is there, who is serving them. So mostly this style of service is good or well done in cafeterias, whereby you can only have even one per salesperson and then they can attend to these people. So the people come, they pick their area where they want to be served. It can be a tray or a food counter. But for our case, this is a food counter. So very ideal for cafeterias. Next, we have single point service. Single point in the sense that all the procedures are done at one point. That is, you make the order, the guest makes the order at that one point, and then they pays at that point and get served all at the same point. So you can see they all more or less like what we've just discussed, that self-service. But the essence here is that with single point, the guests are served in one particular position. They don't have to move. With the other one, which is self-service, the guest may move, maybe make the order and move to the counter. That is, they're not served at the same point. But with here, with the single point service, all the items are served at one particular place. So in this category, the guest orders, they pay for his order and get served all at the same point. So mostly done with takeaway restaurants. I believe you know what are these. We have vending machines for food, kiosks, and food courts. A good example of takeaway restaurant is what we have in KFC and other big names, whereby you go, you pick your items, and you're served there. So that is what we call single point service. And then our last style of service is what we call specialized service. So with specialized service, uh, we know that food and beverage service should be done at a particular point. But here now we have a situation whereby you can have food and beverage served in places that are not designated for food and beverage service. A very good example is what happens in room service, whereby you, as a service waiter, you or a service personnel, you are able to attend to the guest with their meal from their rooms. Or you can also look at what happens in the lounge area. We know that the lounge area is only meant for maybe waiting, maybe sitting and enjoying the calm and atmosphere, but you can do the same. We know about office delivery, whereby you attend to the guests' food and beverage desire in their offices. So we can also have home delivery and trolley. So like currently we have a very boom in the same in that area, whereby we have so many companies coming up with this style of service. So maybe to mention just one, we have what we call Bolt. It is very famous currently. We also have Jumia Food and so many. So this they employ this style of service whereby they attend to the guest from the wherever they are. They don't have to call the guest in a specific place. So up to that point, is there anyone with a question? Any question? Any question? You are not getting me? Hello?
We are.
Were you getting me or I was talking alone?
We were getting you.
Okay, thank you. So maybe if there is anyone with a question before we wind up our class, any question as far as food and beverage service style is concerned? Yes, Caro?
Plus 5 family service.
I'm not getting you, please. You can just maybe indicate your question in the chats area as we move on. If you have a question, Caro, thank you. Yes. So at this point, I would like to us to wind up our class because there's no one with a question. So before we wind up, let me give you your assignment, and this is our assignment. Now in your groups, I would like you to go and look at the differences that exist between table dot and a la carte menus. So by difference, you should be very extensive or look at it in a very extensive manner because that is a group assignment which we will collect in our next class. So up to there, thank you so much for attending today's class.